was doing presentation on a monthly basis in front of the executive board of a publicly listed company that had 7,000 employees. That was a first for me. And of course, I didn't feel, okay, we're going to do it. Of course, I felt intimidated. It was such a down. It was like from 100 up to a minus 100 down. And it happened in the lobby of the hotel, which is like the last place that you imagine it's going to happen. Spending 4 hours with the police and understanding that I'm never going to see any of my belongings ever again. More importantly, my documents. As an expat, you can appreciate that it's not the easiest thing to recover. It got me thinking of these highs and lows in leadership. How do we handle those? And do we talk enough about them? I'm not just a CEO of IGP. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a friend. So that balance that everyone talks about is kind of completely ruined. Am I going to finish writing this email or reading this contract versus sitting down with my daughter and doing her homework or cooking a meal for the family or calling my dad that I haven't heard or had a conversation with for the last 2 weeks? I was always a straight A student, but then my first exam on the MBA, I failed it. I miserably failed it. I was talking to my boyfriend at the time and I was crying. And he was like, why are you crying? Why are you so upset? What do you think? You're studying this and you're going to be this big boss one day. You're going to be a director somewhere. No, you're going to be a personal assistant to some CEO or finance director, and you're going to be making coffees or teas for them. Immediately, my tears disappeared. And I said, you know what? I am going to be a manager one day, the one I want to be. And I'm going to make my own coffee. I don't need a PA. You just need to do what you believe in.
Welcome to the iGaming Leader Podcast, where we uncover the human side of some of the most inspirational leaders in our industry. I'm your host, Leo Judkins, and as an ex-iGaming director turned performance coach, I've worked with over 200 leaders from companies like Entain, 365, Flutter, and many more to help them build the habits to achieve sustainable high performance. In these episodes, we share exactly what it takes for you to achieve the same. So with that being said, let's dive in. Hey everybody, welcome to the iGaming Leader Podcast. I'm here with Jovana Popovic Canaki. She's the CEO for IGP, been in the industry for a long time, 17 years, super inspiring story and trajectory that she's gone through. Obviously, one of the very few female CEOs in B2B especially. And we met for the first time on your stand in Lisbon, which was awesome. Really enjoyable conversation. And welcome to the podcast. Really looking forward to talking today.
Hi, Leo. Well, thanks for having me. We did meet for the first time, which is very unusual. Nowadays, we meet people online for the first time, not in person, right?
But that's true as well, yeah.
Our story starts completely different, and I'm also super excited to be here. I mean, I've never done anything like this, so let's see how it goes today.
So Michael, just for context for everybody, Michael's the CMO at IGP, and he shared that article that you had on IGB about the loneliness of leadership. And like, it's so reinforced some of the things that we talked about in Lisbon as well, on how much of an authentic leader you are and how you openly share. We even spoke about it just before we started recording about some people felt that sometimes you overshare. All super cool. But that's what I'm most excited about, because I think, you know, we have so much inauthenticity in the industry, and it's having leaders like you who actually openly share about struggles, I think is really important. So that's something I'd like to start with, if that's all right, Jovi, is in the beginning of that article, you were talking about the situation you had in Barca. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and kind of what made you lead with that piece of vulnerability in such a big article, such a big news item?
We all know, how these expos go and conferences, and we meet so many people, and we are really, most of us at least, are on the high when the event ends. So it really hurt me in a way, not physically or something, but it struck me more. It's a better word. It was such a down. It was like from 100 up to a minus 100 down. It happened in the lobby of the hotel, which is like the last place that you imagine it's going to happen. I think I mentioned it in my article. It wasn't about the things you can replace, the material stuff, but I give you an example. I had a small wallet that I've been looking for years, exactly like that, of that size, of, that capacity and so on. And then it was gone. So then, spending 4 hours with the police and understanding that I'm never going to see any of my belongings ever again, more importantly, my documents. As an expat, you can appreciate that it's not the easiest thing to recover. But it got me thinking of, these highs and lows in leadership, and how do leaders, managers, team leads, doesn't matter. So even if you lead one person, your team is one person, you're still a manager and a leader, right? How do we handle those, and do we talk enough about them? So I had 4 hours of thoughts in the police station, and then also quite a journey back home. Barcelona is, Europe, but Barcelona to Malta seems almost like a flight to New York to Frankfurt.
Takes forever, and it's such a wonderful source for anybody listening. I would highly recommend reading it. That's where the story opens, but of course it goes about like the loneliness of and the isolation of leadership at the top. And I mean, one of the things that you talked about is, I've got the quote here: "Thought of a simpler, less demanding path always lingers in my mind, and I often ask myself, is it all worth it? Why do I do this?" And I thought that was so amazing. And I bet it's a question that many people struggle with. Is it something that you, yeah, when's the last time you kind of thought about that? When's the last time that that went through your head?
Every time we're in the budgeting season.
I bet.
I can't really recall when was the last time I thought about it. I don't think there is any pattern. It just comes and goes, and I guess it comes in the in the periods of life when I am overwhelmed, not just by work. I'm not just a CEO of IGP. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I'm a friend. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister. So, as many roles that we have. We're not just people in the, working for a company or owning a company and so on. It's, I guess, in those moments when that balance that everyone talks about, which in my opinion doesn't exist, is kind of completely ruined, when, in between, am I going to, finish writing this email or reading this contract versus sitting down with my daughter and doing her homework, or cooking a meal for the family, or calling my dad that I haven't heard or had a conversation with for the last 2 weeks, or cleaning the apartment, or putting the window robot on. I guess these are the moments. Is like, okay, so I should find time for this. I should be able to do all of it, really. And I remember as a kid, as a teenager, time management was a big thing. It was a new thing. And then also in uni, we dedicated a lot of time to time management. And it's like, it's just time management, but it's not, because you do not control all of the things that come your way at every single point of time. So I guess, is it worth it? Is it all worth it? Is a question I ask myself in the moments when, from every area of my life, things come in where I need to do something.
I also agree with you. The whole balance thing is so not overrated, it's over marketed, right? It's over talked about, because we all know, especially like it's a conference season, there's no such thing as balance. It's just not going to happen. And even holding yourself to some sort of work-life balance, it's an expectation you won't be able to fulfill. So when you think back, when you think about those kind of, not just the conferences and the intensity, but like you said, in all aspects of your life, as a wife, as a partner, as a mum, as a sister, as a daughter, like what are some of the things that you feel had to sacrifice on, or had to do less of, to achieve the progress that you've had? And we'll talk a little bit about that progress in a bit.
I like the question, because funny enough, I was asking myself quite some years ago. Well, actually, when my daughter was born and after the maternity leave, I came back to work. I was searching for that balance and I couldn't find it. And then my husband sat me down at the table. He took an A4 size paper and he drew an image that is still very vivid in my head. He's not an artist, he draws horribly, but you know, the graphic is still there. So he drew circles. He drew a circle in the center, which he named, you know, Jovi. And then he drew a couple of other circles. Our daughter, well, our family, himself, friends, you know, my parents and brother and so on. So kind of the rest of the family and work, okay? And then he kind of said, look, you have 24 hours in a day. You can't equally portion for each of these circles enough minutes. You cannot. So you will have to choose. So that really changed my perspective on what balance in life is. I think that we can achieve the balance if we look over a longer period of time. If you look at it on the yearly kind of scale, there you can find the balance. You know, you go away for a vacation for 3 weeks and you have some rest, and these 3 weeks are then only dedicated to your family. So to answer your question, I can't say that I sacrificed something completely, but there were periods of life and, you know, within my career when I had to sacrifice one or the other thing. From silly example, you know, for a year I was not doing manicure, but that is, you know, for the male audience, they would that would not know, it's 1.5 hours every 3 weeks. So 1.5 hours every month that I would use, you know, for something else and stuff like that. For a year, I sacrificed my career during maternity leave for staying with my daughter fully, 100%, not doing anything else. So this is, I can't say as, you know, I sacrificed this 100%. And I'm pretty sure that, you know, going forward, there will be periods of time when I will sacrifice something more than the other thing, you know, friends, not seeing them as much as I used to in my 20s, or, you know, parents, not calling them every Sunday, but calling them once every 2 weeks and stuff like that. So this is where then I find the balance. It helped me a lot.
Yeah, you spoke about that as well, right? Where just, I mean, it requires a lot of sacrifice, and you're right. You know, when you, in the moment, it feels like that, and when you zoom out, perhaps you find that you see more balance in that area. Before we started recording, we were also talking about expats, and you know, us being expats and being parents, and not having that family support, and having to balance all those areas at the same time. That is a lot, right? And like, how have you found that throughout your career, Jovi? Have you found it like at this time where you're now CEO, or as you were progressing towards that level? Where have you found that most challenging, and have you become wiser as you got older with like finding, like being happy with where you are?
I know I'm gonna sound very cheesy, but I found, you know, content and happiness in every stage of the career that I had. I believe that each of those stages led me to exactly where I'm supposed to be. That is, you know, every company I worked for, every role that I took, and I had many. I started as a customer support agent. You know, my entry into iGaming was basically getting a job not even knowing that it's iGaming. So I was supposed to be a financial auditor, financial controller, and on the same time, all these different roles that I took, I really cherished them. I literally enjoyed every single one of them. Some a bit more, some a bit less. I mean, you know, I did work for like 6 months as part of customer support, but I was assigned to work in the department of telemarketing. So I'd be doing night shifts and cold calling Canadian and Australian players. It's not really a phenomenal job and not something that you would enjoy, you know, spending 2, 3, 5, 10 years. But even that taught me a lot more than many others. It taught me humbleness. I was alone in the office. I remember it was cold. There was no heating in that office. The office was in basement. It was night shift. So no one to talk to besides, you know, really doing your job, making a cup of tea just to, you know, warm yourself up. I was literally sitting in a jacket, you know? So today, when I sit in, this beautiful office of IGP with the view, like, I know you can't see it, but there's a beautiful view outside, even though it started, the storm started and there's horrible rain. I appreciate it more. I do. And what made me happier, I don't know. I guess, as I said, every bit of it had its beauty in it.
I think that's amazing. And it's such an important piece of it. I think that's really what forms you as a person as well. You have appreciation of what it feels like, right? At every level. How does that translate back into kind of how you lead the team and how you work with the rest of the company? Does it make you a different leader, you feel?
It might make me maybe not a better leader, but closer to everyone else leader, because it's kind of, I did that path the same as they did, you know, from both kind of this appreciation of where we are today, but also to the knowledge and expertise. It is much easier for me to have a conversation about tech with the CTO and about product with the CPO. Throughout, all these roles, I had many more touch points than if I would just, becoming a manager, let's say from scratch or after a couple of years. So our conversations are dialogues. They're not monologues. We do talk to each other and brainstorm together, and this, understanding of what they're talking about
Yeah.
a bit more deeper than
Yeah.
and we have in IGP we have again, I'm gonna sound cheesy, but this open door policy and flat organization where we actually do listen to everyone's opinion. And this is the environment and the culture that I always kind of wanted, and we finally have it here, so it feels really good.
Because that also allows you to just hear what's actually going on instead of hearing what people think you want to be hearing, which is what happens in most organizations. But I'm also like acutely aware that people, like in front of a CEO, people just behave differently, right? Some sort of switch happens in people's brains where they start. Like I remember when in one of my first roles in iGaming, I couldn't even form normal words. That's maybe a little bit extreme, but you know what I mean. And you know that happens in front of you as well, probably with people currently in the business. So how do you feel about that in a kind of a flat organization and in open door policy culture? What are some of the things that you do to help kind of break some of those barriers or some of those feelings of, having to perform in front of a CEO?
I ask them very direct, are you nervous?
Great. I love that.
I just do that because you can see that, you can feel it. It's not always that people will stutter or not find words. By the way, I was in the same situation many years ago. It can be intimidating. I get it, and I get it because I was in that situation and not once. So I just break the ice by saying, guys, or a person, are you nervous? There's no reason for you to be nervous, and more often than not, they just open and then say, yes, I am nervous. And then we, pause let's say the topic of the conversation or the agenda of the meeting or whatever. And then we go into, why are you nervous? And then we go into, and through this, I saw, different fears that people have. Very often it's about them not wanting to sound stupid or ask something stupid. They want to be at their best in front of C-level or CEO or, their manager. But what I always try to explain to those who are receptive of hearing and learning is that if you don't do that, you will never grow. If you don't show your weak spots to your manager, to your team leads, they will never help you close those gaps. They will never, help you grow and overcome those fears or, certain lack of skills and so on and so forth. So it kind of comes both ways, we in my article, and you mentioned it, we speak about this kind of unsaid loneliness or isolation of leaders, because we don't want to show at all times, or not allowed to show at all times, our human side and our weaknesses, because we are supposed to be the ones to lead and, without fear, with having all the questions covered, all the answers to all the questions. But then there's also the rest of the organization. they want to show also their best, to be always at their best, you know? So it's kind of a two-way street. So again, in my opinion, and this is what I've been doing, is just to open it, just to open the topic and address it straight.
How was it for you then, Jovi? Like, I still remember it very well in my early 20s, feeling like that. Like, what were some of the things that helped you back then to overcome it? Was it just time, or did you, like, was there something different in your mindset on how you approach those conversations?
I never thought about this. Thanks for bringing it up. I guess I always knew what I wanted, so I squeezed my teeth and just went through it. There's a funny story from my personal life. I failed my first exam on the MBA studies. I was always a straight A student, but then my first exam on the MBA, I failed it. I miserably failed it. And I was talking to my boyfriend at the time, and I was crying. I never got anything less than B plus, you know? And he was like, "Why are you crying? Why are you so upset?" I said, "Well, I never failed an exam." And he said, "But what do you think? You're studying this and you're going to be this big boss one day. You're going to be a director somewhere. No, you're going to be a personal assistant to some CEO or finance director, and you're going to be making coffees or teas for them."
Wow.
Yeah, I was like 19 at the time. No, sorry, 21 or 20, I guess, but very early. And immediately my tears disappeared. And I said, "You know what? I am going to be a manager one day, the one I want to be. And I'm going to make my own coffee. I don't need a PA." So we laughed it off, but and this was before my first job. So this situation often was, appearing in my mind in the moments when I struggled, when I was stuttering or felt intimidated. I just squeezed my teeth and went through. And I don't know, it's not really good advice, yeah, but you just need to do what you believe in.
I think it's fantastic because everything is on, all of your dreams are on the other side of your comfort zone, right? It's cross that boundary of your comfort zone. It's just, you just got to do it for long enough for it to no longer be uncomfortable.
It's exactly what it is. We just push through, because no good stuff is easy.
Yeah.
Outside of business, take sports, for example. I trained, you're gonna laugh, please don't laugh. I trained chess when I was young, and I competed in chess, and people don't call chess sport, but I call chess sport because you need to train, yeah? And I had a coach, and I was going to tournaments and so on. So it's the same. I wanted to win the tournament. So it was difficult. It was, mental work. I had to memorize, I was what, 7, 8? I had to memorize, as many combinations as I could to predict, then also a bit of bluffing, tactics, and so on and so forth. It's not easy, but then you win, you feel great. And take any other sport, right? It's no good things, no dreams come just like that, magically, poof, and it happened. We all need to work for them, always. We're in gaming industry, we know that luck is a big factor. There is a bit of that, but I take luck more as in being lucky to meet some people on the journey who either you help or they help you, overcome these type of challenges, including the one you mentioned, being intimidated in front of, I don't know, your manager at first, executive boards. 5 years ago, I, was doing presentation on a monthly basis in front of the executive board of a publicly listed company, of a company that had 7,000 employees. So that was a first for me. And of course, I didn't feel, okay, we're going to do it. Of course, I felt intimidated. It's like actors with, 30 years of career, but they still feel a bit of that stage fright, even if it's a bit before they go on the stage in the theater to perform. Because if you don't have that, you don't care. And if you don't care, you cannot you cannot really pursue your dream. Then you're kind of, whatever happens is good.
It's embracing that, right? It's embracing the fact that like your next level just requires you to be unsure and a little bit messy because of course you haven't figured it out. That's why it's the next level, right? You haven't done it yet.
Correct?
You also spoke about this kind of LinkedIn friendly CEO that nowadays everybody expects and, you know, like whatever. Like it's hard sometimes, right? Because there's things that you can't talk to anybody else about because there are things that only you deal with at your level and nobody else in the organization. So how do you deal with those moments? How do you get perspective? How do you overcome challenges there? Is it the same thing? You just bite on your teeth and you get through it? Or what do you do in those moments where it's really tough and you don't have anybody at your level to really discuss that with?
So what I do, it's just a bit, you know, with my husband, obviously. He's been my mentor for many, many years, but I try not to bring much work home. So it's more of a, let's say, generic topics and strategic topics, you know, that he helps me with. And then obviously with my, you know, fellow chiefs from other companies within the industry who understand the struggle, who can share an opinion, advise, or just listen sometimes, you
Yep.
know, just listen. And we do share a lot of these kind of same challenges. I meditate a lot. I meditate a lot during sleep, so I sleep to a couple of specific frequencies to clear the mind. And then, you know, sometimes it takes 2-3 nights for, let's say, big stuff, but for challenges where only I can or am supposed to address that are not as big, one night meditation normally clarifies the mind. And then in the morning, I more often than not know what to do. That's maybe, you know, biting the teeth and, you know, going through it. But some of the feedback on my article was that, you know, that they felt that I'm like super lonely. I'm not super lonely. I have people, I have people around me, you know, even within IGP on management level, we discuss way more than, you know, I bet quite a few other companies don't. It's more of those things. Are you sure this is something you want to let out and you want this to be discussed, or this is something that you need to kind of solve within yourself, within your mind or within your personality? Because some of the challenges also come from ourselves. It can be a fight or a struggle between how do they call it? You have an angel and the devil on each of your shoulders. So who's gonna help you, you know, talk about these things? This is something you need to solve by yourself.
You told me this beautiful story in Portugal about this all hands meeting and where, you know, you felt like you're the CEO of the company and you gotta talk to everybody and you're making announcements and then sometimes you feel like you've got to pretend that you've got it all together, right? Or not pretend, but you got to show that you've got it all together. You smile at everybody, you bottle it up. Maybe you don't even want to show signs of weakness. Do you want to share that story?
At the moment when it happened, I felt terrified. But then a couple of seconds after, I was relieved. So we had an all hands, a quarterly overview, and as usual, I present, you know, as it goes, from financials to clients to product update, tech update, and so on. At almost end, we had the marketing update where, you know, where IGP went in terms of expos, media, so on and so forth. And that was just after the SBC Summit Malta. But I literally didn't know I was nominated. When they announced my name on the stage, I was eating chicken and my mouth was full of chicken because I was so hungry. And I was like, what's going on? You know, so I went on the stage and you know, I got award leader of the year. So one of the slides was about company nominations and awards, and it was there. And then I remembered, and I'm gonna do it again now, that just behind me I have the actual thing. So, you know, I took it and I've shown it to everyone. I said, guys, this is this is not my award, you know, this is actually all of yours. This is our award. And, you know, I could have not have gotten it if, you know, this company would be one man band. It's, you know, what, because what we achieved all together. And when I said it out loud, I almost cried. It was such an emotional, you know, moment for me, because I meant every single letter that I said. But then in the same second, I was terrified that everyone is gonna notice I'm about to cry, and my voice started shaking. I mean, you know how it goes when you're about to cry. But then the very next second, everyone, like 200 people, started sending these emojis, yes, like these reactions on Teams with hearts, and I was like, okay, no, this is beautiful. And then I had to check with Michael, was that okay or was that not okay? And he's like, Jovi, you're only a human being, the same as all of us, and it's nice and beautiful that you've shown it to everyone. And it's true. But there is always that bit of like, is it oversharing? Is it overshowing? Should we not? Is it a weakness? With time, I realized that maybe it's more of a strength than a weakness.
I definitely agree with that. Why do you think that that's the case? Why do you think it's more of a strength than a weakness?
Because of authenticity. I mean, will you believe a person who tells you that they never shed a tear in their whole life and they're like 40, 50 years old? You wouldn't, right? So why would, you know, people in a certain company believe in a leader who is acting like a robot?
And I think especially people that are new in managerial roles, they sometimes feel that they have to be someone that they're not yet, right?
Yes.
It's the opposite of authenticity. It kind of goes against perhaps who they are because they think they have to be someone. And have you experienced that with as you were progressing through your career? Are those things that you had to learn and overcome?
100%. This is one of the moments in my career that I will never forget. Kind of, you know, my start. So before I got promoted into a manager and got to lead a team, we grew friends with colleagues, you know, and then I think you mentioned it happened to you just before we started the recording. Suddenly you find yourself managing your friends out of work. So I was at the time 24, 25 or 24, I think, or something. So I didn't really know what is the right way how to address this and segregate between, okay, this is Jovi friend and this is Jovi manager, you know. I wanted to erase completely subjectivity and be, you know, objective to leading the team and later company and so on. So at the time, I decided to wear a mask, to be Jovi manager and to be Jovi friend. And those two people were so different. It was so difficult to maintain that, you know, but at the time, I thought that's the right thing to do, that this is the only way to do it. I didn't have a mentor at the time who could have guided me. And I was exhausted, Leo. I was literally exhausted by, you know, having to perform one way and not be myself. I'm talking about the character and personality more than, you know, professional skills and stuff, compared to what I was at home and in the society, in the socium, let's call it that way. And then what happened was very beautiful. I had a yearly performance with one of my reportees, a dear friend of mine, to this day. I mean, we've known each other for 17, 18 years. It feels like a lifetime. She told me, we went all according to the, you know, structure, this, then, and then at the end, she said, I have to tell you something. You're the best friend in the world, but you're the worst manager in the world.
Oh my God.
And I was like, excuse me, you know, with that kind of, excuse me, what are you talking about? And she said, why are you so afraid to show who you are? She said, I'm tolerating you because I know that this is not you. I know who you are because you're my friend. I've known you outside of work. Why are you so afraid? What's the worst that can happen? And I said, fine, I'm not having this conversation anymore. It's done, performance overview. And then, but I went into the weekend thinking about it. What is the worst thing that can happen? Okay. And then I said, you know what? Let's just experiment. And the worst thing that happened to me was actually the best thing that happened to me. I changed my management style. I just stopped playing this role of a manager and wearing this mask, and I just went with, who I am. And wonder, oh wonder, it was much better accepted. People were listening more and following more, and everything else that, followed after that. And it was so much easier for me. So it took time, by the way. It was not an overnight, not change from my side. It was not an overnight change from everyone else, because I still had that reputation, and there was a nickname for me back in the days. They used to call me Dragon Lady.
Oh my God.
I know it doesn't sound well, but that is who I was, or that mask that I was wearing. And it took some time to kind of slowly overcome, that past and the reputation. And I'm so glad that she spoke to me about it, that she literally just cut me with that one sentence that literally changed my career. I'm eternally grateful for her, and she knows it. If she's gonna be listening, she knows that that's her.
It is true, isn't it? Like, it's always these kind of pivotal moments where either we feel ashamed or we're confronted by someone puts a mirror in front of us, or people tell us something that we really maybe hadn't thought about or we hadn't said out loud. And all of a sudden it's like that horrible boyfriend, right? That says something like, that's awful, but it was the fuel for you to, it brought up like the dragon fire, maybe. It brought up the dragon fire.
He played his role. He played the role 100%. That's what they needed. Yes.
And isn't that true sometimes? And I think about this a lot as a parent as well. We want to wrap our kids in bubble wrap. We want to protect them from everything. But sometimes it's the uncomfortable things, the discomfort or the honest truths that help us. Well, not sometimes. They are the things that help us the most and really form us as people. Do you think about that at all as a leader as well? How you can be balanced in your feedback versus brutally direct and really help people change how they maybe perform or how they lead?
I do both. The fun fact is that you can be brutally honest and direct without being rude. But what is more important than this balance is to understand who are you talking to. For your message to be heard the way you want it to be heard, you need to adapt your, let's call it, wording to the person you are giving it to that is to receive that feedback. We go back again to being authentic and having open door policy and letting people know you, but also getting to know them so that you can then manage them also from this perspective that you just mentioned way better. I know 100%, is a number of people where it's just cut the BS. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. This, I'm very disappointed. This needs to be better. By tomorrow morning, it needs to be on my desk, because this is what works for them. This is the feedback that they take the best. Maybe I exaggerated a bit, but like this very brutal, direct, and with the timelines and it's now or never. Whereas other group of people where they would not handle this at all. So I still need to tell them that something was not let's say good enough, but I need to give them an example why it was not good enough. I need to compare it to something else maybe that they did. I need to give them a tip or two what they could do to improve it. So there are many ways how you can provide, if we're talking about negative feedback, but even positive. There are many ways, but what's this balance is more about balancing it out in front of who you're talking to rather than balancing out your words.
It's not about what you say, it's what people hear, right? That's really the key. I want to talk a little bit about female leadership. You're, of course, one of the very few females, especially in the B2B space in iGaming, very few CEOs. But what has that meant to you? And what is that like in that journey? What are some of the challenges that you had to go up against that perhaps men don't even recognize or realize? And what are your views on it? And how's that experience been for you?
Roller coaster,
I bet.
if I can say in one word.
Yeah.
This topic is very close to me because yesterday in IGP we celebrated Ada Lovelace Day with an internal panel, and we discussed many topics around women in STEM in general, not just in gaming. And I was asked a question about evolution of women in gaming specifically, how it was, 18 years ago and 10 years ago and how it is today. I think I'm quite fit to say, at least from my perspective, how it used to be in the last 18 years, because I was on that journey. And it didn't start without any challenges, for sure. I was dismissed, not being taken as seriously, because when you, and just let's remember that those were the days where, all the meetings were done in person. These were no Skype calls, or Teams was not even alive back then, right? So, meeting with the potential client, me walking into the room, 25-year-old, 1 meter 80 tall, blonde. I had a few situations where I was asked to bring coffee and mineral water, which is fine. I went out, I ordered coffee, and I brought it back into the room, then sat at the table and said, okay, well, nice to meet you. I am, name and surname. We can start the meeting now. I was genuinely not offended. Why? Because those were the times where you would not find young female managers, leading meetings with suppliers or clients or so on. You would not. So that was, let's say, the environment as it was. So that was not, they did not ask me to bring coffee because they wanted to offend me. It's because it was very unusual and uncommon. So I would bring coffee, would sit down, would continue. Fun bit was the look on their faces.
You started the meeting, yeah.
Every time. That was the fun bit that I always, remember. So at the beginnings were like that, but it was very similar to my other story that I mentioned. It just kind of, helped me push through and push forward and go forward. And so many years later, what we see today, and not just in iGaming, but in, say, the rest of the industries and businesses, is that women are represented, have a, a better representation, a larger percentages, even though I am not a fan of hiring a woman for the sake of hiring a woman to fill in the quota. So I would always give the chance to the, let's say, better fit of the person, whichever gender they are. But what I don't tolerate is that, one gender over another would have a preferential treatment. Because it's not just women having preferential treatment over men. It could be the other way around for certain roles. Again, if we talk about tech, there are many more developers, males than females, right? But if there is a woman that has a better chance, a better skill set and experience and so on than a man, I would hire her. I have seen iGaming progress massively in supporting females and, allowing them to, let's say, enter into the roles that we haven't seen before. What we still don't see enough is women leaders. We have an increased portion from 15 years ago to today in the entry level and mid-level, but senior and, C-level, there's not many. But also this is changing. I was on a birthday party a few weeks ago, and it was all people from gaming. It was maybe 25, 30 people. And I found myself having gin tonic and talking to a COO and the CTO, both of them ladies, that I never met before. And it is beautiful. And I think this trend, will continue. Nowadays, I don't have any any challenges anymore. It used to be, you know, even 5 years ago, I was introduced, or 6 years ago, I was introduced as a woman CEO a couple of times on meetings. So again, not offended, but then the next time I did maybe an uncommon or unpopular thing, but I introduced a CEO as a male
The male
CEO.
CEO.
Yes. Without having any discussion, without complaining or saying that I didn't appreciate, you know, them calling me women CEO, I just said, okay, so this is XY, male CEO, and magically, I was never again called a woman CEO.
Do you think it's a consequence also nowadays of kind of the pool of talents, or because I'm kind of thinking back to this story from Lewis Hamilton, right, about people of color in Formula One racing teams, and he's saying there's literally nobody, like there's just white people that are in these racing teams. And they did whole research and they found that it's kind of starts with the opportunities from the bottom. There's just literally hardly anybody feeding into the bottom. And therefore, even if you'd set quotas, there's very little that flows through to the top because there's nothing at the bottom. Do you feel that that's the case? Do you feel that's changing? What are your views on that?
This has definitely changed. So the entry level is not what it used to be before in gaming 20, 15 years ago. We have so that starting point, let's say, of the pool of women who could grow is I don't think that's an issue. I think I see it more as a combination of also cultural differences and, let's say, expectations from the environment that you are in. This is something, again, that we discussed yesterday. There are still, you know, countries and nations and cultures that expect women more to, you know, to not to stay at home, but to be there for their parents as a caregiver if needed, to support, you know, the kids more. Say, you know, a child gets sick, who is the first one you think that's going to take care of that kid, father or mother? The natural thought is, so mom is going to stay at home, right? So it's kind of a role that historically, to this day as well, women take in the society with, you know, these roles that I mentioned. Then becomes a choice between, are we gonna do this, or we're gonna, you know, pursue our career? And I don't know, because I knew what I wanted, but also I have my beautiful husband who supports me in every step of the way for the last 10 years. But, you know, maybe other ladies don't feel like they can do it all. But guess what? They can.
Sometimes it's just this crazy expectation that we have of ourselves that we just have to have it all sorted out. And it's okay if that's not the case all the time.
100%, Leo. I can't agree more. I think that the pressure is more the one that we put on ourselves than anyone else really does. I'll go again to my stupid example of nails. So who cares if I don't have a fresh manicure of 3 weeks? So I'm gonna have it of 4 weeks. Is that important to anyone else rather than me? So what am I doing here? I'm disappointing myself and I'm disappointing my expectations. But then to reach that balance, certain expectations need to be adjusted. They need to be adjusted, you know? Otherwise, we can all just go mental. You cannot juggle all of these things with brilliance at every single moment of every single day. It's impossible. So the sooner we admit ourselves that we don't have it all covered, and we don't know yet, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, the easier it actually becomes. And not everything needs to be perfect, you know. I didn't put my bed neat in the morning because I was in the rush. So it's maybe 1 day out of 7 that I didn't do it. What's gonna happen? Well, storm is in Malta. Maybe that brought bad weather, but nothing more than that, you know?
Yes, I love it. Jovi, last question for you. If you would go back to maybe your VP days or a little bit earlier in your career, what's a piece of advice that if you'd go back 5 or 10 years, you would give yourself that would have really benefited you? That's something that perhaps you only found out later that you wish you knew earlier.
I'm going to sound like a sentence from a Hollywood movie. Sorry for that. But I'd tell myself just one sentence. Don't doubt yourself. I spent way too much time thinking if I'm able to do it, then if I would actually gone and did it.
Because we have so many overthinkers in the world, right? People that doubt themselves and think, oh my God, should I do this? I think with AI, it gets even worse because we throw this stuff through AI and it keeps going, like you go through the rabbit hole. So when you find yourself overthinking and doubting yourself, what's something that helps you kind of break out of that?
I think of all the achievements that were there, looking in the past and seeing, every time, looking back and seeing it every time that when I doubted myself, but then I've squeezed the teeth and went through it, either myself or with the help of someone else or, jointly with the team. Even in personal life, it's the same. It's the same, right? You need to overcome something. I just remember that and I say, okay. So you doubted yourself on 12th of October 2021, but you've dealt with this situation. What was the outcome? It was good. Okay, so you doubted yourself on 3rd of March in 2017 that you won't make through that exam. How did the exam end up? You got a straight A. So why do you keep doubting yourself every time where you're in front of a wall, problem, challenge, unpleasant situation, whatever? Why? You might fail, you might not solve it, but you're gonna learn from it. So just this is what really helps me. This is the conversation that I learned how to have with myself.
Jovi, thank you so much for talking today and taking all this time. Really great talking to you, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much, Leo. It was such a lovely chat, and all these questions, they also brought me back, in the past, and all the good and challenging stuff that were happening. I feel very nostalgic now. Thank you for that. Thank you for that feeling, and thanks for today.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you for joining me on the iGaming Leader podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, head over to igamingleader.com for more conversations and insights. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. I'm your host, Leo Judkins, and I hope to see you next week.